Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS. Now it's real time, sponsored by the Mill Casino.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We've got Mr. Bill Herzog here in the studio. We're going to talk some drift fishing. Now, we already showed you his favorite color, his favorite bait, the Okie drifter body. And there's a number of different things. If you weren't using Okies and you're drift fishing without bait, what else would you be using?
A corky.
Would you?
I'd use a corky.
Okay, just corky.
I mean, use those forever too. How many fish have you caught on a pink pearl number 10 corky?
With a little tiny piece of white yarn. That's how I got all my first fish.
Or nothing, just as it is. You
True. Fish in a pill. Fish in a pill.
There you go. They love that sucker. You can use that, and if water's got a little color in it, use a rocket red one or an orange one.
Gotcha.
Corkies, blah,
they work.
Love them to death.
There's no doubt about it. They work. And then, of course, you got to have my favorite kind of setup. I always like to have a Yarny because I can get a little bit of beta eggs on there if I want to. But I love the soft plastic, the little egg clusters. I don't remember. I think this is an Oregon tackle. But at the very least, there's a number of different things that you can throw. But let's talk about your terminal end, right? Okay. How you like to get that set up before you get it onto your main line. Okay, when I tie up, everybody goes, how long are your leaders? I just kind of go like that. Okay. Good enough. That's anywhere from like maybe 24 to 30 some inches, and that's just fine. Right. That allows it just to ride up here, not down to here, not too far. No, hold on, let's back up here. Now, the way that you were holding that is you had that actually where it looked like it would be off the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so these aren't actually so that you understand, they're not rolling along the bottom.
Oh, okay.
No. They're up a little bit, so they're in the zone.
Steelhead look out and they look up. They don't look down. If they have to look down, they got to turn their whole bodies. Right. So you want that up. Gotcha. Get it up in the air. They'll come up for it, you know, if they're aggressive enough. But you notice this one here, these are the squishies. They're neutral buoyancy. They're made for fishing primarily under a float. Okay. If I want to drift fish them, I got to get them up off the bottom a little bit. So what I do is that is a I think that's a number 12 corky. I just slide on there, right?
So that's just going to help it float up a little bit.
It's going to help it just move it up and get it up floating a little bit. And here's something I learned from the bead fishermen. You look at all these, every one of them now has a bobber stopper somewhere along the line. There's a little bobber stop in there.
Keeping the hook a little bit away.
And what that does, it allows you're not swallowing it, you're hooking it. And the bead guy's brilliant. That way, you're not ever hooking the fish deep. And it opens up the bite area a little bit more that the drift bobber. And see, if I had it right down like old school, tight against it like that, it kind of blocks the bite.
There's not enough room for it to get around. It blocks the bite. Now you're moving that away from the gap of the hook, and you'll hook more steelhead. And you're just using an egg style.
Rubber's bobber stop.
Bobber stop, okay.
And that's it. And that's it, right? And that's 15-pound fluorocarbon. We talked about this earlier off camera. Remember, it doesn't matter how big the fat guy is if you can't see him, right? So they can't see that. Use heavier line. You might get a big boy. You don't know. You want some jack on there, right? And I just put that on a 3-way dropper so I can clip on my lead and make it easy.
Now, that's another thing I wanted to touch on. This particular setup is similar. It's just a barrel swivel with a snap. It's not a 3-way. But he's got one of his stick weights on there. Now, there's a lot of times, it doesn't seem like it's been happening much the last handful of years, but high, fast water in every river system is different. I know you fish some rivers that are always higher or at least very fast. And you like these stick baits because they get down immediately. Is this something that everybody needs to make on their own? Or can they find these or what?
You can't get them that size. Once they get above like that size right here, you can get ones that long. I believe Bomac makes them, you know, from when he calls them little doggies, you know, for boondogging and whatnot. But when I fish big water like the Skagit or on the coastal rivers, something that's got a lot of flow and deep, and I'm fishing boulder beds, these do not hang up. And I can run those as long as I can make them. That's 031 spinner wire I put in there and just bend it up on the end so it doesn't slide. That's hollow core 1/8. Oregon Tackle makes this stuff, and I can make them that long if I want. And these things get right down, and I can run them slow down through a boulder bed. They don't jerk going through, they just kind of slide and glide along, and just the most perfect presentation. They don't hang up. You don't lose your precious 50-year-old Okie drifters doing this, by the way. And you can fish water that only guys with floats can get to. And by the way, you can fish water that the guys with floats cannot.
Because they can't get their gear there.
They can't get it down fast enough, and its water's too deep.
Yeah.
And yeah, these things, there is a time and places where drift fishing will catch you steelhead, and nobody else is gonna.
Yeah, because it's going right over the top of them. We mentioned it last week. One of the reasons why the rigging that we're talking about last week was to get your gear down now, not letting it have the opportunity to slide through that float. We were talking about fixed floats in particular. It gets down now. It gets in front of the face when it hits the water. Now it's down there, and that's what he's referring to. When you're drifting it, you're able to get it to them rather than going right over the top.
Well, there's a lot of places you go along, the water be 2 or 3 feet deep, and then it goes down into a pocket.
Right.
Normally, by the time your float and everything gets all set up, you've missed the good spot by 20 feet sometimes.
Yep.
These get down right as a drop. You just feed it, down it goes, tighten up, and you're fishing right. Now, those fish will be nosed up there because the current's going over their head. They're down there in the soft water hiding out.
Just hanging.
You want to get down to them.
Yeah.
That big drift fishing outfit right there will get down to them.
You know, I love it. And there's not very many people. I know that these style of weights is more popular up north of where we're standing right now. For whatever reason, it just is what it is. But I think you'll start seeing more people start to use it.
I think so.
Because there needs to be more people drift fishing. Quite honestly, myself included, we have gotten so far away from fishing old school because you got to have some skill.
A little bit.
It takes a little bit of time to understand what you're feeling, how you're actually making your cast, how you're presenting it. So people are super lazy, right? And I'm going to admit I'm one of them. I'm a bobber dogger, and I'll always be a bobber dogger. But drift fishing is just something that if you go through there, correct me where I'm wrong, if you go through there bobber dogging or whatever and you don't get bit, it's a really good idea to throw a rig behind it, drift fishing right along the bottom.
Show them something different also. Okay, these are pretty close to a bead.
Sure.
How many people are throwing beads now?
Everyone.
98.9%, right? 99%?
Yeah.
Go something different. Put something different. We'll get to that a little later with them little shiny things here too.
We'll get to that. That's a different.
But that's something different is really important sometimes. Maybe they've been stung. Maybe they've seen the same thing over and over. The fish have been there for like a week sometimes. They've seen all this. The aggressive fish have been bit. They're like them little birds sitting along the side of the road. When a car goes ripping by, they know the car's not going to move. But they're so used to this, they're like, meh. You know, show them something different.
Yeah.
They might have been stung by it, right? You don't know. Or caught before on something different. Give them something they haven't seen.
Yeah, I love it. And it's certainly something that you have to always consider because they're not the easiest fish to catch.
No.
You know, we'd like to think that they are.
And remember, a good angler will always have many, well, not many, will always have some different techniques with them for certain types of water and coloration, whatever that's going on. There's going to be always going to be a technique that's going to outfish another. Sticking with one all day is, like you said, it's lazy. And if there's a whole lot of aggressive fish, it doesn't matter. But if you got a lot of people fishing, not many fish around, you better be doing something different. You're going to catch some fish.
At least you'll stand out, right? You're going to have those opportunities where the fish might just give it a bite instead of letting it go by. So this is something that I would call, this is the edge rod. Okay, it's not an old school rod, but it's an old school setup in the sense that it's a 9'6". Okay, it's a 6 to 10 pound. This is what you would call a free drifting rod or a drift fishing rod in a spinning setup. Okay, now this is not how I go after it when I'm drift fishing. I honestly have a very hard time drift fishing with the spinning reel. You can absolutely do it, right? Now 9 out of 10 times, if I'm using this setup, I'm in a boat, we're free drifting, and I'm just a glorified rod holder. Like you mentioned again off air, it's like, just put a cardboard cutout in there.
We're a mannequin, and I can hang and sleep.
Come on. I mean, it's deadly effective, but you're just a glorified rod holder. Size 30 or 3,000 size spinning reel, 15 pound. I like braided line in all situations. Pretty much, although my other drift fishing rod is with mono, and I like the high vis if it's on a spinning setup.
I like high vis no matter what I'm doing.
Absolutely, you can see
it. And here's why. Say you make a cast out to a spot with a natural tone line, and there's wood, logs, whatnot, or a boulder pit. You're out there. I go, man, am I near the logs?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, I am.
Dang it!
Crack. Or conversely, the fish are laying tight against the logs. I think I'm close enough, and you've missed it from here to the camera.
Right, gotcha.
The guy who can follow his line and see it and knows right where it's at is going to come right behind you and put it right where he needs to.
Right.
He's going to get your fish.
That by itself is a very good point, everyone. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about that high-vis line or line that's going to be easier to see than, say, a clear fluoro or a dark green line that might be out there. Okay, so I'm going to save a little bit of time here because I'm trying to save as much time for Bill as I can. When we come back, I want to talk about, that was a fixed setup, right? the lead is not sliding on the main line. I want to get his opinion on the other setup that you might use when you're drift fishing for steelhead or for salmon or whatever.
Ooh,
with a sliding weight, if he likes one or the other. We'll be back with that in just a couple minutes.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Chevy Silverado and the impressive Turbo Max engine. Flex your muscle with the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever. Official truck of Outdoor GPS.